Back here on MLB Tonight, Brian McTaggart, who's going to join us in a moment, put this out on his X account. Do you like the Kyle Tucker trade for the Astros? 53% said yes.
I know two guys that weren't involved in that poll, you and I.
Yeah, I did.
Right?
I mean, I guess you can like what came back, but you lost superstar talent, arguably their best player. Well, here's the trade once again. And Isaac Paredes, who's had some good seasons, comes back on the other side, and he can play third, he can play first. Hayden Wesneski, and then Cam Smith, top prospect, comes over as well. So I guess you could justify it, but it seems like as we bring in Brian McTaggart, Kyle Tucker going to the Cubs, I didn't expect that, Brian. I mean, he's again, arguably their best player, not their best hitter. That's Yordan Alvarez, but this is a whale of a player. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, I was shocked by those results. I thought it would be 3-1 against the trade just because Astros fans do not want this ride they've been on to end. Not that it's going to end, but they didn't want this core to be broken up. And now, like you said, their best player is gone, and Kyle Tucker. They might lose Bregman, who's been a huge part of this core. It seems like a shift in direction, but I think the Astros just got to the point to where they weren't going to sign Tucker. We all know that, and they really had no replacement for Tucker in the minor leagues like they did for Springer and Correa. So they had to get something for Tucker, and they addressed a couple of their needs, starting pitching, corner, infield. But they can't be done here. They have to go and make other moves, and they can still be really competitive. But losing Cal Tucker in the prime of his career, that's going to be tough to take. But it looks like a lot of Astros fans can see the other side of it and what they were trying to do here.
Okay, you're kind of answering the question. So give me your view of their master plan. Since we're talking about Bregman is still out there. He was one of their foundation players to their, championship team, championship level team. What's the master plan, do you think, for Houston?
Yeah, I think getting Paredes allows them to put him at third base if Bregman does not sign. And they're still in the running to sign Bregman. If they do sign Bregman, which I think is a long shot, you can move Paredes to first base. But they still need to add another bat. Wisniewski's going to come in and help the bottom of that rotation. They definitely needed another arm. Maybe they get a couple of their pitchers back this year healthy. But they cannot lose Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman and not add another impact bat, whether that's signing Santander, trading for Arenado, moving Paredes to first, signing Christian Walker. There has to be another move, and I think they're working on that. I mean, this just cannot be their offseason because that would be a big step back if they lose those guys and replace them with Paredes.
All right, let's back up then. How are the negotiations going between the Astros and Bregman?
Well, the Astros made an offer pretty early of 6 years at about 156, which clearly I think is a pretty far gap from what Bregman wants. Bregman is probably the top free agent hitter or one of them on the market right now. He's going to be 31 years old, I believe, but he's got the kind of track record. He won a Gold Glove this year. He's a guy that has won at every level. He could come to a team and really help them. He's not the offensive player he was in 17 and 18 and 19 and probably never will be again. But he's a guy who could play every day, Gold Glove, be a leader in a clubhouse. A team like, the Red Sox could use somebody like Alex Bregman. But as far as the Astros go, I think there's a gulf there. I don't think they'll be able to sign him unless Astros ownership goes against what they've done in years past, which they don't want to give out these 7-8 year deals. They don't want to give $250 million because they will tell you, if you look at most of these deals, they don't work out in the long run. And It's worked out well for the Astros. They let Springer walk. They let Cole walk. They let Correa walk, and they just keep continuing to win. So they have a business model and how they want to do this. And if they're going to stick with that, which I think they will, Bregman's not going to fit into that.
And Brian, let me just show exactly what you're talking about here, that this isn't just cold-blooded by the Astros. If this was 2018 and 2019, and you have a 384 on base, slugging 527, and, in the 2 years, like you're like a 9 or 10 win player. It's vast. Excuse me, that's 2016 to 2019. So that's 4 years. That's vastly different because he was, I think, a 7 and an 8 win player in 2 of those seasons. Then you look at the last 3 where he's a 122 OPS plus. Look, that's good, but that's not great. So he did all that with power and contact. He was one of the best players in baseball. But there has been a slide. I'm not saying he's washed up or anything like that. He's still very good. But there's a difference between the superstar Alex Bregman and this one the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, no doubt. He chased more. He walked a little bit less. I mean, he was a guy with more walks than strikeouts typically. That was, flipped this year. The power is not what it was before. I mean, in 2019, he almost won the AL MVP. I mean, he was a hair behind Mike Trout, and Trout got injured, I think, the last few weeks, and Bregman closed that gap. He almost won the MVP, but he's still a really, really good player who's come up so big in the playoffs so many times, a proven winner, a Gold Glove defender, a great character guy in the clubhouse if the teams are looking for that. So he's demanding a lot of money for a reason because he brings a lot of values to clubs on and off the field. But that being said, Astros losing him and Kyle Tucker, maybe it's a soft rebuild. I mean, as long as Jim Crane owns the team, I don't think they're ever going to rebuild in the definition. But certainly it's a crossroads that we haven't seen from the Astros now since they turned it around about a decade ago.
Yeah, I'm glad you were praising him there a little bit. I didn't mean to bash him. He's a 4-win player still. He's still a very good player. Quickly, Nolan Arenado in this mix at all? Interest?
Yeah, they've talked about him. I mean, I think he would be a good fit. Offensively, a guy that they would feel pretty good about in the ballpark, and also we all know he plays defense every bit of Bregman, if not better. And again, you can move Paredes to first. Getting Paredes just allows them some flexibility where they can still add a corner infielder. Paredes played mostly third base, but he did tell us the other day he's willing to play first base or wherever the Astros want him to play. So, I think that would be a good addition for the Astros if they can get him and probably ease the fans' pains here of losing two of their cornerstone players if they can add somebody like Arenado or maybe, somebody else in the outfield, because I think they need to add in the outfield as well.
Yeah, we had the numbers up there. Like 2 years ago, Arenado is also a superstar player. Hasn't been for the last two, so they'd be buying low on him, and he's an expensive guy as well. It's never easy in these things. Brian McTaggart. Brian, thank you so much.
All right, BK, take care.
All right, thank you. Dan, we were doing a show when this trade went down for Kyle Tucker, and we're thinking, what's the master plan? Because there's still a very good team. They won 88 games last year. They could roll out of bed and be a 500 team. Do you wonder, are they pushing, or are they, as Brian said, a soft reboot here?
I'm not going to overreact with the Astros because I thought last year in the first week of May, they were way below 500. And, the word was, can they get to 500 by the end of May? They had a daunting schedule, and I thought there's no way they're going to get to 500. Winning the West, I don't think so. All of a sudden, May turned into June, and all of a sudden the Astros were like, uh-oh, the Giants starting to wake up again. But I think this is the first time reality, and Brian touched on it. Like, when you lose guys like Springer and Correa, it's hard to accept that when you're in a culture of winning. But I think the guy that's been in the middle of all of that was Bregman.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's as appealing to the Houston Astros as he would be to other clubs that are saying, hey, we want this guy. There's some intangibles he brings to the ballpark that I feel we need, or my team wins, whether that's the Red Sox or a team looking for a corner third baseman. He's also said he's not opposed to, playing a little bit of first base. He's a winning player, Brian, but does that equate into a guy more than $156 million reported? I think if he's looking for more than that, I'm not sure he's going to be wearing an Astros uniform next year. And I think when the Astros, Jim Crane, he's been around the block a little bit. They know how to build winning teams. I think when they signaled the move that they were going to move Tucker, don't be surprised if they're not in on Santander. There's a method to the Astros winning, and I don't think there's any way they're punting on 2025.
Framber Valdez also going into his contract year now. He's the foundation of the rotation. Any chance they try to move him?
I don't think so. They desperately need him. Now, with that said, if this season isn't going as the Astros hope, I think that Valdez will be one of those guys at the trade deadline. Let's say the Astros are floundering around 500. The AL West is very good and very competitive. There's no question that the Astros will look to move him at the trade deadline, but I can't see that happening right now, Brian.
Yeah, as we're putting in this and they see the rotation, still a decent rotation, but Valdez really is the guy and has been the guy. By the way, like that deal that was been floated of Bregman, reportedly, it's $26 million a year. As we know, Dan, that's real money.
That's real. But I think he's looking at what he's done over his career, and he's probably looking with some of the other third basemen, guys like Manny Machado, what they signed for, and he says, hey, that's the kind of player I am. Look at my track record. Look at the back of the baseball card. That's what I think I'm worth, and we're going to see who blinks first.
Yeah, Matt Chapman signed for about that, got an extension with the Giants over in the mid-100, 150, somewhere around there, too. So, but, right, does not have the track record, the winning track record that Bregman has. It's expensive. It's expensive to get pitching as well. When we come back, the Yankees pivot post Juan Soto. Did they do the right thing in spending over $200 million on Max Fried? We'll dig in next.
The lefty ace, Max Fried. He has been terrific. He's been going deep in games.
Swing and a miss.
Mike Tyson punch-out music right there.
What a performance by Max Fried. Complete game. One of the best outings you will see by a pitcher this year in Major League Baseball.
What a performance. Brilliant lefty, Max Fried.
Make it a baker's dozen. 13 for Fried.
A career best 13 strikeouts.
He has been so locked in here lately, has Max Fried.
Back here on MLB Tonight, I'm Brian Kenny. Dan Plesac will rejoin us in a moment. Tonight, we continue to evaluate the still active free agent market. The Yankees making a quick pivot last week, fell short on Juan Soto, immediately went to the starting pitcher market and agreed to a deal with Max Fried. Now, after Soto got 15 years and over $750 million, 8 years and $218 million, doesn't seem like all that much. But it is a significant investment. Is it a good one? Let's do a little digging in. And let's start with this. The Yankees starting pitching is actually quite deep already. With a healthy Garrett Cole by midseason, the Yankees were one of the few teams to have a Game 4 starter for the postseason. And that was with an injured Nestor Cortez and with Marcus Stroman, who just went unused. How many clubs have the luxury of a first-year free agent making over $18 million a year just sitting on the roster for emergency purposes? The Yankees did. So here's the Yankees rotation with their AAVs, average annual value. Look at that. Start with Cole, 36. Fried now 27.5. Rodon, 27. Stroman, 18.3. Dan Plesac, that's real money. Look at that. The real money. Now Cortez is out. They traded for Devin Williams, who's an elite relief ace. All right, so let's dig into Max Fried. Who is he? Max Fried is going into his age 31 season. He has battled injuries, throwing just 78 innings 2 years back, but he's topped 165 in 3 of the last 4 years. He's not overpowering. His strikeout percentage was about 23% last year, 42nd among 107 qualifiers. But his ground ball rate was 59% last year, 3rd best in baseball. His average exit velocity was 4th best in baseball. In other words, he knows how to pitch, keep the ball on the ground, gets weak contact. So here are the best run preventers in the game over the last 4 years. Only Shohei Ohtani is ahead of Max Fried, right? A bark-adjusted ERA. You see, I put the WAR in the other column here because Fried actually has a higher WAR, gives you an idea of the innings pitched, overall productivity. So 16.3, not as much as Zach Wheeler, a little better than Max Scherzer, way back behind Zach Wheeler here, 5th in WAR in that span. But Fried is one of the best handful of pitchers in the game. And again, 100 is league average, 147, 151, top of the food chain. Now, 8 years is too long for a pitcher getting into his 30s. But it does keep the AAV down. And that does mean something to the Yankees, as they are usually trying to keep their luxury tax payments under control. One thing Fried will have to change, and I'm usually much more dispassionate about these sort of things, but the fact is the Yankees are a playoff team. They make the tournament most every single year. And for a pitcher at this level, Fried has had some bad blow-ups. Now, these things can be fluky. I know it can be happenstance. We have to be fair. If he's had some fantastic postseason track record, we'd be talking about that, so we have to talk about this. Fried, as good as he is, over 67 playoff innings in 20 games, has a 5.10 postseason ERA. He did have 6 shutout innings against the Astros in the World Series clincher in 2021, but he's also had 4 games where he's been knocked around, including the historic Cardinals blowout in Game 5 of the Division Series in 2019, and just last year in an elimination wildcard game against the Padres. You overspend on a starter these days to get more than anything, Dan, you know this, solid starts in postseason games. It's a bit unfair to judge just on that, but that, now that he's a Yankee, that's the expectation for Max Fried, and that will be one of his challenges. Dan Plesac is here. I always bring you in when I say that's real money. He's getting real money. Your thoughts on the deal?
I don't like the deal. I love the deal. Here's why. All the people that I've talked to, Rick Kranitz, pitching coach with the Braves, they can never say enough good things about Max Fried. Now, he's had a little bit of an issue, nothing serious the last couple of years, staying on the field, making 30-plus starts. Brian, he is without question one of the top 5 left-handed starting pitchers when the game of baseball, when he's on, he is going to fit that Yankees rotation. Brian, he has 2 pitches that he can wipe you out with. He's not a very big guy. You look at him, it looks like he's about 23 years old. really good 12-6 curveball, a true curveball, not that hybrid as a slurve, but this is the pitch. It's a fastball, and it's got late life, and it's got zip on it. And one of the things he does, he's not afraid to throw the ball in to either lefties or righties. And if you're talking about a fielding pitcher, he's as good a fielding pitcher as there is in the big leagues. Does a great job getting over cover first here, which isn't an easy play for lefties because most lefties fall off towards the third base side. They've got to regather and get back over to first base. There is so much to like about this guy. And all of a sudden, I look at this Yankees rotation, and this is the other reason why I love it. The Garrett Cole that we saw in 2024, we saw flashes of the guy that won the Cy Young in 2023. But we also saw flashes, little its and bits where, struggle with the command, life on the fastball, breaking ball not quite as good. All of a sudden, you take some of that pressure off of Cole, and you have a legit guy in Max Fried. Rodon, to me, solid starter, a little mercurial. He can be really good. Then at times, he'll have a couple of outings where you're like, man, his stuff is too good. Luis Gil, you could make a case, was the best starting pitcher in the American League. April going into the middle part of May. Then the back end, you like Clark Schmidt, had some injuries at the end of the year. Marcus Stroman, to me, is interesting. I would be surprised, Brian, if he's on the roster come opening day, because I don't know where he fits in that starting rotation. And to me, he doesn't profile as a guy that's going to want to go to the bullpen.
Yeah, look. The guy's marvelous, right? Look, he's, again, last 4 years, as I put up there, he's second behind Shohei Ohtani, and that's it. He's got more innings than Ohtani. 8 years, though, is a long time. I mean, you just look, you got to look at this realistically. If they keep the AAV down, that does mean a lot to Brian Cashman as he's trying to lower the luxury tax payments if they go over the luxury tax threshold. But otherwise, you're eating money late. So is that just the philosophy these days? Hey, you know what? If that's dead money in the last year or two, when the guy's 38 years old, we'll just deal with it?
You package him in the deal, you try to get rid of money. The big question for me is going to be this with Max Fried. We've seen a lot of players come to New York, whether it's the Mets, primarily the Yankees. You're at the epicenter of baseball, right? Things are just bigger, they're better, they're louder, they're faster at Yankee Stadium. It is what it is. I think his career is going to take a jump towards the better. I think he's going to trend better. It's not going to be as easy as an environment as it was in Atlanta. And one or two things are going to happen, Brian. He's going to get backed up against the wall, and he's going to come out fighting. And I've watched a lot of Max Fried over the years. He might be skinny, but he's a tough dude. He carries a big arm. And I really think he's going to flourish with the Yankees. Listen, outside of Corbin Burns, to me, this was the best starting pitcher to get that you know what you're going to get. I think he's going to be better in a Yankee uni.
Look, and I said it, look, I'm loath to say, hey, the guy has a postseason ERA of 5. Usually that's happenstance, but he's had a few of those blow-ups. He's had good games, but he's had a few blow-ups, too.
He has had some of those, and the knock could be on a lot of pitchers. Garrett Cole there for a while, so you're wondering, hey,
that's a
what
knock
kind
on
of
him.
postseason guy are we going to get?
Yeah.
And Garrett Cole won his Cy Young Award and was great last year. I think Max Fried was the best get this winter. I really do.
All right. Big on that. When we come back, Dan took a trip to the dentist to get a filling. Is that true?
I did.
I did. Actually,
I'm Novocaine out now. I'm feeling pretty good.
This is a true story. It's good.
Dr. Jeffrey Faldudo, magician with the needle.
Good. There you are.
Yeah, there he is.
Well, I guess it's got to be true. It's good to get your dental benefits in before the end of the year. How can some teams fill their holes on their roster? Get it? Dan drills down, so to speak, next.
MLB Tonight is presented by Chevrolet. Together.
皆さん、いかがでしたか？今シーズンのヒューストン・アストロズの動きは、驚きと興奮に満ちた展開となりました。スーパースター、カイル・タッカーの移籍は確かに衝撃的でしたが、これは新たな時代への一歩、チーム全体の戦略を考えれば、必要不可欠な決断だったと言えるでしょう。イサック・パレデス、ヘイデン・ウェスネスキー、そして期待の若手カム・スミスの加入によって、アストロズの陣容には新たな風が吹き込まれています。もちろん、アレックス・ブレグマンの去就は、未だ不透明な部分もあります。しかし、ブレグマンは、これまでのアストロズの栄光を支えてきた真のリーダー、彼の経験や勝利への情熱は、どのチームでも輝くことは間違いありません。そして、もし彼が再びアストロズのユニフォームに袖を通す日が来たなら、それはファン全員にとって最高のニュースとなるでしょう。しかしながら、皆さん、覚えておいてください。 アストロズは過去10年にわたり数々の難局を乗り越えてきたチームです。ジョージ・スプリンガーが去った時も、カルロス・コレアがチームを離れた時も、私たちは前を向き続け、常に折への道を切り開いてきました。そして今、カイル・タッカーがチームを去ったとしても、その勝利の文化は決して途切れることはありません。なぜなら、このチームには一つの共通の思いがあるからです。勝ち続けるという強い決意です。今シーズンのアストロズは、ソフトリビルドという言葉が聞こえてくるかもしれません。でも、私たちファンは知っています。これは、ただの変化の瞬間であり、後退ではなく前進の一歩なのだと。そして、その証拠に、補強されたローテーションには、フランバー・バルデス、ウェスネスキー、そして、現在のピッチャー陣が揃っています。これからは、新戦力とともに新しいアストロズの歴史が作られていくのです。アストロズが、これまで積み上げてきたもの、それは単なる勝利数やタイトルではありません。それは、チーム一丸となって勝利をつかみ取る団結力と信頼です。勝利の瞬間に選手たちが見せる喜びの笑顔、互いに肩を叩き合い、力強くハイタッチを交わす姿、そこには野球というスポーツが持つ真の魅力が詰まっています。そして私たちファンもまたその一員なのです。ヒューストン・アストロズというチームは選手だけのものではありません。そこにはスタジアムを埋め尽くすファン、テレビの前で応援する皆さん、そしてこうして一緒に盛り上がる私たちがいます。選手たちの頑張りと私たちファンの熱い声援が一つになったとき、どんな強敵でも乗り越えられるのです。さあ、ここで皆さんにお願いがあります。今シーズンのアストロズへの期待や感想、気になるポイントなど、ぜひコメント欄で教えてください。皆さんの熱い意見や応援メッセージがきっと次の動画や話題作りのヒントになります。そして、これからも一緒にアストロズの戦いを応援するために、チャンネル登録と高評価をお忘れずにお願いしますね。野球のシーズンは終わりません。これからも私たちは、ヒューストン・アストロズの輝かしい瞬間を共に分かち合い、次なる折を見届けることができるはずです。そして何より、このチームにはまだまだドラマが残されています。新しい選手たちの活躍、ブレッグマンの動向、そして新シーズンでの逆襲、一緒に信じましょう。私たちのチームを、そして野球の楽しさをもっともっと広げていきましょう。皆さんの温かい応援がチームと共に次の一歩を進む力になります。それでは次回の動画でまたお会いしましょう。一緒に戦おう。